Goed, goeiemiddag ENAA111 studente. Welkom by sessie 1 van 3 wat die vak betref. Ek hoop julle het elkeen die verwelkomingsvideo gaan kyk vir 'n bietjie agtergrond en dat jy dalk ook 'n bietjie welkom voel, want dit is tog waarvoor dit is. Ek begin die sessie in Afrikaans, ek gaan later oorsit Engels toe. Julle sal hoor tussendeur sal ek dinge in Afrikaans verduidelik. Dit is vir my belangrik dat kommunikasie behoorlik plaasvind in die eerste plek. En as jy nie noodwendig so sterk is in Engels nie, is dit belangrik vir my dat jy ook verstaan wat aangaan en dus verwys ek terug na jou moedertaal toe. Daar is net die kontakbesonderhede, my kontakbesonderhede aan die linkerkant. As iets dringend is, met ander woorde, as jy dieselfde dag nog 'n antwoord wil hê, dan e-pos asseblief vir my direk. As iets minder dringend is, en jy is bereid om tussen 24 en 48 uur te wag, e-pos asseblief die tutor, mevrou Relien Bischoff, by die module kode, of die module e-pos. Goed, aan die einde van vandag, gaan jy 2 assesserings hê wat jy moet afhandel. Daar is klas toets 1, wat so 'n bietjie weg beweeg van wat ons vandag gaan bespreek. Dit is maar net basiese vakterme wat jy vir taalkunde moet ken. Ek het vir jou besonderhede daaroor opgesit op e-klas. Jy kan dit onder die knie gaan kry. Die toets sal teen donderdag, die 23ste, 22ste sal dit op e-klas wees. Hy behoort 'n bietjie minder as 10 punte te wees. Jy kan hom net gaan doen. Dan die eerste gedeelte van jou semesteropdrag, wat vir die 1 Mei moet inwees, gaan spesifiek oor die stuk wat ons vandag, of die theorie wat ons vandag gaan afhandel. Moet asseblief nie skrik vir daai 215 punte nie. Dit is genoeg om alles te dek wat ons gaan bespreek, maar ek het dit spesifiek dat dit elektronies gemaak word en deur die e-klas gedien word, so jy gaan minimaal tik, jy gaan keuses moet uitoefen. Gaan kyk asseblief daarna en onthou die afsnydatum is daai 1 Mei van dit. Goed, ek gaan aanbeweeg na die inhoud self. Ekskuus, ek wil net daarna kyk. The question there is, what are we going to do today? Specifically look at nouns, adjectives, verbs, adverb, tenses, prepositions. These are all parts of speech. Included there is determiners, articles and conjunction, and then lastly, subject-verb agreement. These are all things that you might have done at high school that you might remember. The fact of the matter is we do it at a level that is far more challenging in this module. It is important that you keep up with this, you keep up with the reading that I give you, because this gives you background, because when you get to the assessments, like your semester assessment or your semester task, semester assignment, the application is happening there, as well as in your exam eventually, which by the way is the 15th of June, if I've got my dates correct. Okay, I'm going to start with parts of speech. You'll see they all fit in like that, and to do that I'm going to refer to a certain sentence that I've formulated. If we think of parts of speech in terms of sentences, this gives us a basis from which to work, a foundation from which to work, and you can know your parts of speech all in one by asking you certain things within the question, within the sentence. There is the basic sentence: the big boy played beautifully in the game and he kicked the winning goal. That is what we'll refer to back again, that I've tried to include most of the parts of speech in that sentence, but there might be some missing. Let us start off with nouns. Okay, now nouns, selfstandige naamwoorde in Afrikaans. I always remember what they are by the N for name. They name common objects around us. As you can see there, I've given you the definition. Importantly, you will know it's a noun if you can put an article in front of it. Now, article is the or an, or a. We'll discuss that more in detail a little bit later. If we look at our sentence there, the big boy, the physical male, human male, the name of the physical human male, played beautifully at the game. The game is an arrangement we've got where there's a contest based on rules, and he kicked the winning goal. Goal is the name we've given to an opportunity to score and accumulate points in a game. So there is your three nouns in that sentence, all naming words. Now, you would know these are all common nouns. There are other nouns as well, and let's have a look at them. If my mouse just wants to work, there we go. Firstly, we get proper nouns. We know they are proper because they are formal names of people, places, or things. There is an example. Your own name and surname are proper nouns as well, irrespective of the language in which they appear. They are all proper nouns. Common nouns are the ones we've discussed in the previous slide. If my mouse just wants to work, boy, game, goal, those are all common nouns. Okay, everyday things like objects and animals, and the important thing is if it's got a name, it is probably a noun. There are some examples that you can see there. Then we've also got, or let me put it to you like this firstly, common nouns can also be called concrete nouns. Concrete beteken iets concreet waaraan jy kan vat, concrete selfstandige naamwoorde, and the opposite of concrete is abstract, something that is different, something that cannot be seen, and these are generally nouns that deal with concepts which we usually can only imagine and not touch. Hier en daar is daar een wat afhangende van die konteks waarin gebruik word, kan het dus al twee geklassificeer word, maar het is so skaars soos die noordander. Okay, pronouns, these are words that replace nouns in a sentence, and they often replace proper nouns. If we take our example sentence again, the big boy played beautifully at the game and he kicked the winning goal. So I said there, instead of repeating the big boy again, we replace it with the pronoun he. There, I just want to see if I've got an example. No, I do not. Other examples of pronouns is he, she, it, they, we, you, your. Those are all pronouns referring to specific nouns, be they proper or common or concrete nouns, and they all act as a replacement, and they bring a sense of I don't want to say balance, but a sense of maturity to the language that we use, and we don't sound almost redundant when we keep on repeating the same noun there. Collective nouns, this usually, well, not usually, it does involve a group. Okay, so in other words, a gaggle of geese, a pack of hounds, an army of ants, those are all collective nouns, but they can also include a collection or a group of things. Okay, a groep basis. Onthou collective, collection, dis meer as een, vir jou om dit te onthou. So words like army, because there's obviously not just one soldier in an army, a gang, not just one gang member, a team is not a team if there's only one person, a government which is made up, it could be of a president and ministers, or of a prime minister and ministers. Those are all examples of collective nouns. The ones that you normally learned in school are these ones where it's a gaggle of geese and a parliament of owls and a clan of hyenas. Those are the common ones. But people fail to see that these words refer to group names as well. Okay, so these are collective nouns as well. Okay. As part of your semester assignment, you've got this continuous assessment task 1 here. I'm just going to quickly show you some of it. The rest you can finish so that you've got an idea of what we're referring to and how it works. I'm going to do that as far as possible after each section. so that you can go into the semester assignment with some confidence. Okay, they say there, list 7 proper nouns and 8 common nouns. So 7 proper nouns, ons weet dit is name, okay, eie name, and common nouns, selfstandige naamwoorde. Okay, so I have gone and I've given each one a color, and it looks like this. Thomas there would be a proper noun, so I've highlighted it red. A common noun, the first one you get there is friend. In other words, the person with which you have a relationship that is mutual to both, and it's not just an everyday person. I don't want to say from the street, but you understand what I mean. Another common noun is Holstein. Then I've highlighted or I've made avenue green. Now this is a flexible possibility. It can be both common and proper. Proper in the sense that if that whole name is the name, then that whole thing is proper. But I reason that avenue is just another name given for a street, and that's why I've made it common. Another proper noun is Edgewood. That's a certain district. Now you'll see there I haven't completed the entire exercise. This is just to give you some guidance in completing this specific exercise in your the first part of your semester assignment that I've called Continuous Assessment Task 1. You will also see there are other exercises there that you have to complete as part of Continuous Assessment Task 1, which have further or deal further with nouns. Okay, kom ons beweeg aan. The next one there that has to do with nouns, and what we've learned already is they ask you there to divide the words in this exercise into 2 lists, concrete nouns and abstract nouns. Now again, concrete is just normal common nouns, die goeders wat ons kan vat, wat ons kan ruik, wat ons met ons sintuie kan aanskou. Abstract nouns are all in the mind. Again, I've color-coded them, and you'll see there, rose is definitely a concrete, a common noun. It's a type of plant that you can touch. Justice, you cannot touch justice. Justice can be delivered in a certain sense, but it's not something that you can see, so that's definitely an abstract noun. The same with happiness. Happiness hasn't got a fixed form. It's not as if happiness walks by and you say, oh, that's a happiness. Okay, so definitely also abstract. Cow is a concrete common noun. Okay, the 4-legged animal that provides humans with milk and meat, or a bovine type of animal. Then skiing. Now interestingly, skiing, I've also said it's a concrete common noun, but you'll see it looks like a verb. Okay, in this case, this is called a gerund, a verb that acts as a noun, because we are specifically describing the activity, the name of the activity that you do across snow. So this, in this case, is a gerund, a type of noun, which is originally a verb, but it acts as a noun. Okay, the rest of that you can do via the exercise on e-class. Okay, I've also included 4.2. Now, I did not specifically refer to personal reflexive, demonstrative, interrogative, or indefinite pronouns. So the first thing we're going to do there is to identify the different pronouns. This is a pronoun because it replaces the common noun. It is a pronoun. It also replaces a common noun. He is a pronoun. Himself is a pronoun. You is a pronoun, and they is a pronoun. Now, if we move on, I'll explain why. Oh, there's 2 more sentences. Who is a pronoun? Her is a pronoun. I is a pronoun, and them is a pronoun. Let's see what this looks like and why we can classify them into different colors. Okay, or different types of pronouns. If my mouse would just carry on. Okay, the personal pronouns. Personal, he, she, they, I, you. Those are all personal pronouns. In this case, it is also a personal pronoun, or it can also be an indefinite pronoun. So pronouns, you'll see there, it, he, you, they, are all personal, persoonlik, dit het met hulle te doen. Okay, her and I. If we move on to the demonstrative pronouns, verwysende naamwoorde, dit verwys na iets, demonstrates something. This, okay, is definitely a demonstrative pronoun. I think there was one more, if I'm not mistaken. It doesn't seem like it, but you'll see the exercise carries on. Interrogative pronoun. To interrogate someone is to ask questions from them, so that it has to be a questionable, not a questionable, a question pronoun. And you'll see that who is the interrogative pronoun. If we carry on, indefinite pronouns, it doesn't refer to something specifically. This could be an indefinite pronoun as well, but not in this context. It can definitely be one of them, or one of them. And then if we just go back, them is definitely an indefinite pronoun as well, because there's nothing particular that refers to it. I skipped one there, a reflexive pronoun. This basically goes with your personal program, so he goes with himself, she goes with herself, they goes with themselves, and the only example we have here is of himself. Was there another one? No, there was not. So himself is a reflexive pronoun. I've just not highlighted it in red. My apologies for that. Okay, that is as far as pronouns go. Let's move on. I've given you the start of another of the exercises you'll have in your semester assignment part 1. They ask you there, but I don't think we've discussed adjectives. Let's discuss it first. Adjectives and nouns go together because adjectives describe nouns. Adjectives describe nouns. If we go back to our original sentence, the big boy, so not any type of boy, boy is a noun, big is the adjective, played beautifully at the game, okay, and he kicked the winning goal. He didn't kick any type of goal, he kicked a winning goal. We know goal is a noun, and winning therefore is an adjective because it describes that noun. It adds description to the noun, and it tells us what the noun looks like. It gives us more detail basically. Okay, if we have a look at the task that you have to do, they ask you to indicate the adjectives and the noun that each modifies. It is always the best to find the nouns first, to find the object, the adjectives. What basically happens, and I've said it earlier, is that you ask yourself via sentences how your part of speech works. So the first thing we do in the first sentence, we identify the noun. The sentence is the road was rough and uneven. Okay, what is the noun there? It has to be road, because that is the thing that the name we give to the portion of earth that we drive on, or we walk on, or we ride our bikes on. What is it describing? It's describing the road. So what was the road like? It was rough and even. So there are your adjectives. Okay, then I'm just going to let it light up. There's your noun, and there are your adjectives. You can basically leave and out as well. I've just included it in this case. The next one there, an old rusty car is parked in my space. What is the noun? We know the noun is car. Okay, although space can also be a noun, but the question there asks you indicate the adjectives and a noun each modifies. So car is your noun. What type of car? An old rusty car. They've actually used two adjectives there. If you look at number 3, the child licked the sugary sweet icing from a big spoon. Okay, you'll see here I have identified child as a noun, although it's got no adjective, so I haven't really followed the instruction there. The next possible noun that we've got, icing. Now that looks, again with the ing, looks like a verb. It is not a verb in itself. It's not a gerund either. It's just the spelling of icing in this case, but that is your noun. What type of icing? sugary sweet. So those are the adjectives describing that noun. And then from a big spoon. Spoon is another noun. And what type of spoon? A big spoon. Okay. Number 4, a ragged string dangled from the dusty light bulb. Where are your nouns? String is one, light bulb is another. Can you see there are 2 words? So light is not an adjective in this case, okay, because you don't get other type of bulbs in that sense. So in this case, this entire word is a noun, and it's called a complex noun because it's made up of more than 2 words. Usually there could be a hyphen in between, but not in this case. So let's move to our first string. Is string being described? Yes, it is. It's being described as ragged. So there is your adjective. Let's look at our second verb, our second noun, light bulb. What type of light bulb? It's being described as dusty. So there is our adjectives. And then lastly, I have had a boring, depressing day. What is our noun there? Day. The length of time we describe. It could be from sunset to sundown, or it could be time-wise 24 hours. And what type of day was it? It was a boring and depressing day, so there are our adjectives. Okay, once we've finished doing nouns and adjectives now, those 2 that belong, I want us to move on to verbs, to eventually being able to move to adverbs as well, because those 2 belong together. Okay, I've used my topic sentence again. The big boy played beautifully at the game and he kicked the winning goal. Verb, as we know, are doing or action words. The things the boy is doing there, because the boy is our subject, he played, okay, and he also kicked, which are all doing words, according to the definition you see there. Verbs, as they say there, also carry time. In other words, it happened in the past, it's happening now, what's happening in the future. Or tense, that is something we'll discuss a little bit later, and it tells us when something has happened. That's the role of the verb, and because we know ed, or the initial verb with ed indicates past tense, we know this happened in the past. This is something that I've said to children at school as well. If you are unsure if a verb is a verb, simply ask yourself, can you do it? It's something I've seen when I went to do a critical lesson as well this week. The children are unsure whether words are nouns or verbs, and the simple question that the teacher poses is, can you do this word? Do this word to me. And if the child can't do it, then they know it is probably a noun. Okay, let's just continue with verbs. The last 2 last things I wanted to say there. You also have verbs, and this I sometimes have a problem with because it confuses many children, but they tend to say the verb is to be. Okay, that doesn't quite make sense to me, or to have. Okay, we are there referring to the verbs is or are. These are auxiliary verbs we'll discuss now. Was or were, and has, have, and had. They are in different tenses. Here they are in present tense, there they are in past tense, and here they are in perfect tense. Tenses we'll discuss as well, but just know that when they ask to be or to have, they refer to these auxiliary verbs, hulp werkwoorde, wat hulle gebruik. Mens kry het wel in Afrikaans, ek het nou vir oomblik gedink mens doen nie. These are the ones found in English. They can often stand on their own, and they have a special name, which I've not given you already. They are called auxiliary verbs. An example here, Hayden is in the care school, is your verb there. So daai ding van, kyk of jy dit kan doen, gaan nie altyd werk nie, maar dis hoekom jy jou hulpwerkwoorde moet ken ook. Okay, auxiliary verbs is what we spoke about, means extra or to help. If you think, for example, if you've got a radio in your car, or a radio standing loose, and there's a USB port there, it's called the auxiliary port, because you stick something in there, something additional, a USB stick to play extra music or whatever you want to do with it. If you have a look at that sentence there, the dog had disappeared. The auxiliary verb is had in the perfect tense, and the complete verb, onthou jy kan nie net sê, jy kan nie twee nie onderskei nie, as altyd daar is, moet jy as een werkwoord aandui. The complete verb in the sentence is had disappeared. So it is your physical doing word and your auxiliary verb there as well. Then you also get special types of auxiliary verbs. Okay, these verbs are known as modals. Okay, daar is nie 'n Afrikaanse ekwivalent daarvan nie, ons noem alles net werkwoorde of hulpwerkwoorde. But these modals indicate possibility, moontlikheid, dat iets kan gebeur. Every modal is usually found before a finite verb. It can be also used as a question word, like all other auxiliaries, and it can be present, past or future tense, but it is never plural. Okay, dit is nooit meervoudig. Dit is iets wat ons ook baie gou moet begryp, of verseker begryp. Only the modal ought goes with the infinitive to. Onthou, as jy 'n werkwoord kry, en daar's to voor dit, dan is dit outomaties nie 'n finite verb, dit is 'n infinitive. So jy kan nie dit as 'n finite verb klassifiseer. So the only modal ought goes with the infinitive to. There is just, if I could get back to it, a table which gives us all the verbs in there. Where is my mouse now? In the present tense as well as in the past tense, all the modal verbs. Will, the past tense, I don't know why they've said should there, but it will would be would, past tense, and shall be should. This is a bit confusing. Must and might. It's actually must and may. Okay. Then we've got shall, that also goes with should. And would, that goes with will. They've mixed these up in terms of tense now. Okay, I want us please to look at this exercise. It says they circle the verbs and underline the complete auxiliary verb in each sentence. Hierdie is nou deel van jou eerste deel van jou semester opdrag, so ek het begin hom al 'n bietjie hier vir jou. Okay, the first one that says Heather, and I don't have another slide, excuse daaroor. Heather will rarely drive in the car in winter. Okay, die belangrikste ding om te begin is om jouself af te vra, wat is die doenwoord daar? Wat is die werkwoord? And that very specifically is drive. We know will is an auxiliary, a hulpwerkwoord, so the complete verb there is will drive. Dit is baie belangrik om dit te onthou. Jy kan nie net sê drive of will nie, daai twee saam is die volledige werkwoord. We've got, and that of course is a modal as well, a modal auxiliary verb. The next one we have there is he must have taken my jacket by mistake. What is the physical verb? Is taken. Okay, it's something you can physically do. And then the auxiliary is must have. Must is in this case a modal as well. So the full verb there is must have taken. That is your full verb there. Now if we look at number 3, we played ball against their team Saturday. There is no auxiliary verb here. Daar is geen hulpwerkwoord nie. It's just your normal physical verb, if you'd like to call it, and in that case it is played. Number 4, that would have confused anyone. Confused is the physical thing that you can do or can be, the physical state that you can be in. Would have, would being the past tense of will, okay, that is a modal auxiliary verb, and have being a normal, if you want to call it that, auxiliary verb. So the full verb there, the full finite verb is would have confused. That is very important to remember in that way. Number 5, this is a question. Would you please flip the burgers? What is the physical action that we can do there? And in that case, it is flip. We see there is the modal auxiliary verb would, the past tense of will. So the complete there, verb there is would flip. Although it sounds a bit funny to the ear at this stage. Okay, let's move on to the second part of this part of speech. These are adverbs. Now adverbs, you can see there, add to the verbs. Okay, they give more description or detail on the verbs. If we look back at our original sentence, it says the big boy played beautifully at the game and he kicked the winning goal. The reason why I can say beautifully is an adverb is because it describes the verb played. It describes how he played. So beautifully is your adverb. These are just examples that I've given you here. They're not necessarily fixed adverbs, or there's more adverbs than just this list. As I said, they're just examples here. Now, if we look at our continuous assessment task 1, which is part of our semester assignment, part 1, they ask you there to circle the adverbs. I'm going to show you some of the adverbs. I haven't done everything, and I'm going to tell you how I ask myself, are they adverbs? So if I move on, you'll see there are 2. And the simple thing is, who is doing what? So the chimes rang on the quarter hours continuously. The chimes is your subject. What are they doing? They rang. When did they or how did they ring? Continuously. So we know our verb rang is a verb, as I said, and continuously is describing how the chimes rang. So this definitely is the adverb. If we look at the rest of the sentence, it says, but, we'll get to conjunctions now. The clock face was darkened at night to prevent attack by the heavily armed Zeppelins. Zeppelins are airships. This is obviously in the time during the Second World War. So our subject there, the clock face, is an auxiliary verb. Darkened is a physical verb. So the entire finite verb is was darkened at night to prevent attack by the heavily armed Zeppelins. There is no extra adverb there. If we carry on, though the clock functioned perfectly during the war and up to 1962, the subject there is the clock. Who's doing what? The clock. What is the clock doing? Functioning, or it functioned. So that is your doing with your verb. How did it function? Perfectly. So there we have our adverb. You've got the rest of the exercise in your semester assignment. You can go and complete it there. Then, if we move on, there are verbs can be divided into 2 more styles. This all depends whether there are subjects and objects involved when the verbs are used. So one verb can be either transitive and in one case and intransitive in another case. Okay, so transitive verbs specifically refer to verbs that are linked to particular objects in a sentence. If we look at the example there, she pedals the bicycle at full speed. We know she is the subject, pedals is the verb. What does she pedal? And the answer there is the bicycle. So there is your object. There is a direct link between that verb and that object. It forms a sentence on its own. She, subject, pedals, verbs, and the object the verb is working in on is the bicycle. Okay, at full speed is just describing to us, that's an adverbial phrase. It's describing us how she pedaled. I've said there that the verb there is pedals, and it's transitive because it refers directly to the object, the bicycle. Now, intransitive verbs is exactly the opposite, but it doesn't mean they don't function. They don't relate to any object. That's the only difference. So, the example is there, she runs. It doesn't tell us where she runs to, how she runs, okay? If she runs into something, okay? It just tells us she runs. So, she is your subject, runs is your verb, and that is a perfectly grammatically correct sentence without being directed to any object. So that runs is an intransitive verb as opposed to pedals, which refers directly to the bicycle, which is a transitive verb. Okay, I think this is our last continuous assessment task. There might be more before we're going to take a break. I'm going to divide the lesson into 2 videos so that you can also take a break in between, and then you can watch the second video after you've taken a break. They've asked you there, underline the verbs and tell whether they are transitive or intransitive. And to help you in doing that, circle the direct object. Okay, Mr. Jenkins's cat watched the birds in the tree. We know watched is our verb because it's something the cat does. What was the cat watching? And specifically the birds. Okay, so there is a direct object related to that verb. So this is very definitely a transitive verb. Number 2, we will not buy a new car until next summer. We is our subject. Will buy or will not buy is our finite verb. What will we not buy and new car. So there's a direct relation, a direct object relating to the verb, in this case will buy or will not buy, and that is a new car. So buy is definitely a transitive verb as well. Number 3, the small boat moved slowly through the grey sea. Now we know the small boat is the subject. What is that subject doing? It's moving. Okay. Where or on what is it moving? Through the grey sea. Okay. These are all adverbs. Slowly, it's describing us how, and it's describing how it's moving. But the direct thing that it's moving on, or that relates to, is the grey sea. So the grey sea is the object relating to that verb moved. So the verb moved is also a transitive verb. And there you can see it, I've underlined it, and I've not shown you the direct objects, but in any case. Okay, before we carry on, I think we're going to take a break. We'll return with participles and gerunds. Go and make yourself a cup of coffee, because there's a lot to digest now, and then you can carry on watching in the second video.